All right, this is Unit 25, the 50s. We left off kind of covering the years immediately following World War II, which was primarily the late 40s, some in the early 50s, and to kind of set things up for this discussion, remember that there was, a lot of turmoil following the war. It was a good time for us because the United States, because we were the strongest power, left intact and such after the war, but unfortunately we kind of traded World War II for the Cold War and this growing rivalry with the Soviet Union. We left off with 1949 being a pretty bad year for Americans. The Soviets had created their own atomic weapon. It seemed maybe even more powerful than ours. And China, the biggest nation in the world, had fallen to communism, which kind of fed on our fears of this worldwide domination of the ideology we were opposed to. So we'll start today with the 1950s, which are much happier times for the U.S. We still have some issues that we'll cover, obviously, every decade, every year, every time in human history does. But for the most part, a pretty prosperous decade for the country. So hitting on the highlights of the unit, the 1950s brings prosperity to the United States. It's one of the best times economically for our nation. The 1920s, the 1950s, the 1990s might be probably the three most prosperous. The 50s were good, solid economic times. Also, we'll see that one of our war heroes, General Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, gets into politics in the 1950s. In fact, he indicated maybe a desire to do that, a desire possibly to run for president in the early 50s. And both political parties kind of fall over each other to try to get him to run in their party. Eventually, though, he chooses the Republicans. He'll win elections in 52 and 56. The 1950s also are known for the beginnings of the civil rights movement under leaders like Martin Luther King. The movement is growing in an attempt to bring equality to blacks, primarily in the South. The Cold War becomes more entrenched in the nation in the 1950s. We had talked about the Korean War in the last discussion. And it's fought, and the events after that ends with basically a stalemate of Korea being divided north and south, communist and a democracy. And we'll also see in the 1950s that a new Asian nation, Southeastern Asian nation of Vietnam, begins to start a conflict that's going to have huge ramifications on our nation as it ties into the Cold War. The Soviets in the 1950s will crush some minor rebellions in Eastern European nations that are fighting against Soviet and communist dominance. The suburban areas of the United States are growing in numbers, and the significance in America as Americans can afford automobiles. Suburban areas are these cities that surround the bigger cities, so like the Detroit metro area, for example. And in the 1950s, those places are growing as the car is becoming more accessible to Americans who can now commute to work, live outside of the city, commute to work, and also public transportation is growing and becoming more feasible. That allows people to live outside of the major cities where most of the jobs are and simply commute. Finally, consumerism is a big part of the 1950s. Similar to the 1920s, people, because the times are good, can afford to buy more things and extra things that are more luxuries and not necessarily necessities. And so we see the rise of some modern amenities like shopping malls and fast food restaurants in the 1950s. I Like Ike. You can see the campaign pen or the picture depiction of one there on the slide. That was Eisenhower's famous campaign slogans in 1952 and 56. So I want to take some time on this slide to kind of cover the main themes of those elections. Eisenhower leads the Republicans to 2 victories in the decade, winning in 52 and 56. There was some, before Eisenhower had, declared to be a Republican, he was kind of seen more as a moderate to conservative Republican. And there was some, kind of jockeying for position of who really would be the standard bearer leader of the Republican Party. The unit talks about Robert Taft, who was the son of our former president and Supreme Court Chief Justice William Howard Taft. He was kind of a conservative icon within the party, but the party kind of goes with Eisenhower, which shows a shifting a little bit in the Republican Party to, again, more of a moderate to conservative tack, whereas had they followed Taft, it would have been more true conservative. In both the elections of 52 and 56, Eisenhower runs against Adlai Stevenson. He was a lifelong progressive Democrat in the mold of FDR and Wilson, with extensive experience in politics, but he loses both elections to Eisenhower. In 56, Stevenson chooses Estes Kefauver as his vice presidential running mate. Kefauver was a longtime congressman who became famous in the 1950s for leading investigations against organized crime in the United States. Eisenhower's dominance brings the office of the presidency back to the Republicans after the Democrats had dominated the decades of the 30s and 40s. So that was a significant shift with political parties. We'll see this change again in the 60s. 60s become a very Democratic dominant decade for the presidency. But the 50s, thanks to Eisenhower, the Republicans are back in power like they had been in the 20s. Richard Nixon, a senator from California, becomes Eisenhower's vice president. During the campaign, he almost becomes a victim of scandal. So he almost never was vice president, and then probably wouldn't have been president later on, as we'll see in future units, had he not been able to overcome a minor scandal during the campaign. There was accusations that he was reimbursed illegally for his personal expenses in former campaigns that he had run. But he delivers a famous speech called the Checkers speech, in which he kind of outlines the whole issue and really wins over the American people. It's called the Checkers speech because he says in the speech that he refuses to give back his dog Checkers, which was given as a gift to his children during a certain campaign. So the Checkers speech was something that really resurrected his political career or prevented it from ending by kind of explaining away the minor scandal. Bring this up because we'll see in the 1970s, unfortunately, Nixon will be involved in another major political scandal as president. So we talked about last time how the Cold War is going to dominate things really for decades, from the end of World War II all the way to the beginning of the 1990s. The theme really in the foreign policy of our nation is this Cold War rivalry with the Soviet Union. So I wanted to kind of cover how that went in the 1950s. First of all, Joseph Stalin, the longtime premier of the Soviet Union, dies in 1953, and his successor is Nikita Khrushchev. Khrushchev in the 1950s will have to deal with some pushback by satellite nations in Eastern Europe. Remember, we talked about after World War II how the Soviets had kind of set up a buffer zone. These were nations that were controlled by the Nazis during the World War II, but liberated by the Soviets at the end of the war. And then they set up communist and or Soviet-friendly governments in the process. The Soviet Union has a history of being invaded from Western Europe. We could go back to Napoleon, Hitler in World War II as two examples. And so they really wanted to create a buffer zone, an area between their nation and Eastern Europe, with friendly nations that would, kind of prevent invasions in the future. Hungary is one of those nations that they set up communist governments in, but there's a backlash. There's actually an uprising or a resistance in 1956 against the Soviet control of the nation and dominance of the political system. But the Soviets, kind of showing that they're not going to mess around, crush the insurgency, really for the whole world to see. And so Hungary does not fall from communism. It stays entrenched under Soviet control and will remain a communist nation for 4 decades following. So the spread of communism around the world also gets really close to the United States in the 50s by 1957, when Fidel Castro, a communist revolutionary, headed a revolution that gained control of the island nation of Cuba. Just a few short miles from the coast of Florida, the Castro-led Cuba meant that the U.S. had communist neighbors by the end of the 1950s. So it really kind of hit home, how close this whole idea of communism and communist insurgency was, because basically just a few miles away was now a communist nation. So it sets up a rivalry where we're going to see a lot of tense moments in the next decade. An interesting dynamic in the Cold War was a space race that begins between the United States and the Soviet Union, and also a spying incident that happens towards the end of the decade, actually in 1960. The Soviet Union kind of kicked off the space race in the 50s between the U.S. and itself by launching the first successful satellite into orbit called Sputnik. They were able to kind of reach space first, and it really woke up Americans that they felt like, hey, maybe we were falling behind our enemies. They had, created a weapon in 1949 that was supposedly, more powerful than our nuclear weapons, and now here they are, the first ones into space. So the United States responds with their own first satellite, the Explorer, but they always seem to stay one step behind the Soviets for most of the 50s and 60s until we successfully land on the moon in 1969. So it's a space race that's kind of led by the Soviets until the end of the 60s. The space race was about pride between the two nations, seeking to be the most advanced in the world. And there was also a fear by both that a military advantage could result by the other having a presence in space. Before the successful implementation of spy satellites, the U.S. had gathered information over the Soviet Union with high-altitude planes they would fly that were called the U-2 fleet of planes. In 1960, Francis Gary Powers, an American U-2 pilot, was shot out of the sky by the Soviets. Now, he parachuted to safety onto Soviet territory, but was caught and put into custody for 2 years before he was returned to America on a prisoner swap. The incident was highly publicized, and it was reminiscent of the espionage between the two superpowers during the Cold War. So it was, while the two nations aren't fighting directly, you could definitely see the things that are going on behind the scenes as the two enemies are jockeying against each other.